Folks, I'm waiting for the signal that they're literally about a minute away, but I'll do what I learned how to do in the Senate, which is filibuster. I just want to share with you some news that I think is really important. Prime Minister Kishida had been talking about this with us for a couple of days. I know the issue of finance has been much on everybody's minds. And as you know, we've been pushing really hard to be able to get the full amount, not just for the 23 and out years, but for next year too. We did achieve getting, according to the OECD measurement, up to about somewhere between 95, 98. I think I remember in school, if you got a 98 on a test, you did pretty well. But obviously it's not 100, and that was the promise. So Prime Minister Kishida has today announced that he is going to be, that Japan will make a major contribution over the next 10 years. And the $2 billion per year for the 5 years is significant. And because it can be managed in a certain way, it has the ability to leverage and to produce from World Bank and other sources about $8 billion. So that will put us over, if that detail gets locked in properly, that would put us over the 100 for next year, not waiting until 23. But as we all know at these gatherings, it's not over till it's over. It's not done until it's done. But I believe it can. So let me just formally welcome you all to this event. I want to thank so many leaders for taking the time. I know sitting at a desk and waiting for an opportunity to affirm something is not the normal responsibility of a head of state. But we're deeply appreciative because in the numbers of people here today, well over 100 nations have joined the Methane Pledge. Understanding, obviously, everybody, and I see Fatih Birol here who's been warning us about it, it's 20 to 80 times more destructive than CO2. It is fully responsible for 0.5 degrees of the warming of the 1.1 we're at today. And with this initiative, you're making it possible for us, if we achieve our goal, to be able to lower the warming by 0.2 degrees. That is not insignificant. It's the fastest get you can get with respect to methane. So we're deeply appreciative. All of you are leading on this, and I'm delighted to introduce to you President von der Leyen of the European Commission and the President of the United States, my boss, Joe Biden.
What a pleasure to be here with you, Excellencies, distinguished guests, my fellow leaders, ladies and gentlemen. When we talk about climate action, we look at two different horizons. There's one, of course, of climate neutrality by mid-century, but there's a second one, and that's the closer one. And this is much more urgent, and this is the horizon of 2030. We have to act now. We need big structural changes, yes, to reach 2050 climate neutrality, but we cannot wait for 2050. We have to cut emissions fast. And methane is one of the gases we can cut fastest. Doing that will immediately slow down climate change, because we all know methane is a powerful greenhouse gas. Roughly 30% of global warming since the Industrial Revolution is due to methane emissions. Methane is 80 times more global warming than CO2. And today, global methane emissions grow faster than at any time in the past. So cutting back on methane emissions is one of the most effective things we can do to reduce near-term global warming and keep 1.5 degrees Celsius. It is the lowest hanging fruit. On September 17th, when you, President Biden, dear Joe, hosted us for the Major Economies Forum, the European Union and the United States announced the Global Methane Pledge. Since then, our climate envoys, John Kerry and Franz Timmermans, have worked intensively, tirelessly to gather support. And today, just over 6 weeks later, we are officially launching our methane pledge. And we're proud and happy and grateful that over 80 countries have signed up. This is fantastic. Thanks to you. Together, these over 80 countries commit to reduce global methane emissions by at least 30% by 2030 from 2020 levels on. Methane emissions come from various sources. We all know oil, gas, coal, agriculture, and landfillings. These sectors have different potential for short-term action. The greatest potential for cuts is, without any doubt, in the energy sector. And this is why next month, us, the European Commission, we will propose to regulate methane emissions. We will introduce rules to measure, to report, to verify methane emissions, rules to put limits on venting and flaring, and rules to detect leaks and repair them. And of course, our common agriculture policy is also increasing its focus on tackling methane emissions. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow leaders, the Global Methane Pledge makes cutting on methane emissions a collective undertaking. This must, of course, be supported by a sound scientific basis and a capacity to monitor and to calculate methane emissions, because we all know that only what gets measured gets done. So that's why the European Commission supports the setup of an independent international methane emissions observatory through the UN Environment Programme. But we also all know that as important as this pledge is, it is about more than hitting targets. There are clear benefits to cutting emissions, methane emissions, yes, for the planet, but also so much for the people too. Because if we deliver on this pledge, we can prevent over 200,000 premature deaths. We can prevent hundreds of thousands of asthma-related emergency room visits and over 20 million tons of crop losses a year by reducing ground-level ozone pollution. I want to thank all those countries that have signed up to the Global Methane Pledge. With this global pledge, we are making COP26 the moment when the world moves from aspiration to action. And now it's my pleasure and honor to leave this podium for you, Mr. President, dear Joe. Thank you.
It was very easy to follow Ursula, because she says it all well the first time. Look, I'm going to be very, very brief. I want to thank Ursula. Thank you so much to everyone here today, for signing this game-changing commitment. One of the most important things we can do, and I keep referring, as many of you do, to this decisive decade. We've got to figure what we're going to do. It's not just between now and 2050. What we're going to do between now and 2030 is going to impact significantly on whether we'll be able to meet our longer-term commitment. And one of the most important things we can do in this decisive decade is to keep 1.5 degrees in reach, is reduce our methane emissions as quickly as possible. As has already been stated, it's one of the most potent greenhouse gases there is. It amounts to about half the warming we're experiencing today, just the methane exposure. So together, we're committing to collectively reduce our methane by 30% by 2030 and I think we could probably go beyond that. We just announced this package at the General Assembly and back in September. At the time, it was mentioned 9 countries had signed on. Today, it's over 80. It's approaching 100 countries that are signing on. That's nearly half the global methane emissions, or 70% of the global GDP. And it's not, this is going to make a huge difference. And not just when it comes to fighting climate change, as Ursula pointed out, the physical health of individuals and a whole range of other things. It's going to improve health, reduce asthma, respiratory-related emergencies. It's going to improve the food supply as well by cutting crop losses and related ground-level pollution. And it's going to boost our economies, saving companies money, reducing methane leaks, capturing methane to turn it into new revenue streams, as well as creating good-paying union jobs for our workers. And we're talking about jobs to manufacture new technologies for methane detection, jobs for union pipe fitters and welders to go out and cap abandoned oil wells and plug leaking pipelines, which there's thousands of miles of those. And it has been a foundational commitment of my administration from the beginning. It's something that I campaigned on, and today I'm announcing the next steps to reduce U.S. methane emissions. We're proposing 2 new rules. One through our Environmental Protection Agency that's going to reduce methane losses from new and existing oil and gas pipelines. And one through the Department of Transportation to reduce wasteful and potential dangerous leaks from natural gas pipelines. They have authority over that area. We're also launching a new initiative to work with our farmers and our ranchers to introduce climate-smart agricultural practices and reduce methane on farms, which is a significant source as well. And this is all part of our new methane strategy, which focuses on reducing the largest source of methane emissions while putting thousands of skilled workers on the job all across the United States, and I expect in your countries as well. So let me close again by reiterating, this isn't just something we have to do to protect the environment and our future. It's an enormous opportunity for all of us, all of our nations, to create jobs and make meeting climate goals a core part of our global economic recovery as well. The United States is eager to work with each of you to make sure we meet this goal and encourage more countries to join us in committing to reducing methane globally, because there are more that can join and should. So I want to thank you again. Much more to say, but much of it's already been said. But thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your ambition. And now I'm going to turn it back to Secretary Kerry. I believe he's still here. There he is. And I thank you all so very much.
My pleasure to introduce the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ursula. We all want to build a cleaner and healthier future for our kids, and that means taking real climate action. There's no achievable pathway to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius without deep cuts to methane over the next decade. As Ursula and Joe and others have pointed out, methane has 86 times the warming power of carbon dioxide over a 20-year period. Not only that, it's also an air pollutant that's responsible globally for 500,000 deaths and hundreds of thousands of asthma-related hospitalizations annually. That's why Canada welcomes the Global Methane Pledge and its objective of reducing collective methane emissions by at least 30% by 2030. We're fully committed to doing the hard work at home to develop and implement a plan to slash methane emissions across the economy. And we encourage other nations to sign the pledge and do their part too. But Canada is not stopping there. Ursula pointed out that methane from the energy sector is a particular and pressing problem. Canada is a major oil and gas producer, and today, Canada becomes the first country to answer the International Energy Agency's call for a 75% oil and gas methane reduction goal. We are committed to building on the regulations and partnerships we have in effect today to reduce these emissions by at least 3/4 below 2012 levels by 2030. And we're committed to developing regulations to get the job done. Canada calls on other oil-producing nations to join us, and we look forward to sharing our world-leading experience. The good news is that technologies to help reduce methane emissions already exist. So we know that making large-scale reductions is feasible at low costs. By working together and each doing our part, we'll all share the benefits of a healthier climate and cleaner air. Nos engagements s'appuient sur des mesures déjà prises par le Canada pour réduire les émissions de méthane. Il y a 5 ans, nous avons été l'un des premiers pays au monde à réglementer les émissions de méthane du secteur pétrolier et gazier à l'échelle nationale. Nous nous engageons aussi à poursuivre nos efforts et à réduire les émissions de méthane provenant de l'agriculture et des sites d'enfouissement. Avec du leadership et un plan solide et réalisable, nous pouvons bâtir un meilleur avenir, un avenir avec de l'air plus propre, des populations plus en santé et une économie prospère. C'est le moment d'agir avec de vraies actions climatiques comme celle-ci, et vous pouvez toujours compter sur le Canada pour faire sa part. Merci, mes amis.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. President Fernandez of Argentina.
Muchísimas gracias. La República Argentina celebra esta iniciativa sobre el compromiso global del presidente Biden, que renueva el compromiso de los Estados Unidos en materia de ambiente y cambio climático. Nuestro país ya se puso en acción. Nuestra contribución determinada nacional implica la reducción de todos los gases de efecto invernadero, incluyendo el metano, y promueve activamente la adopción de tecnologías de punta para la captura del metano y la reducción de emisiones fugitivas. Nuestra acción enfatiza el principio de responsabilidades comunes, pero diferenciables, en el marco de una transición justa. Necesitamos medios de implementación innovadores. No hay modelos únicos. En el caso de la Argentina, el aporte de nuestra agrobioindustria a la seguridad alimentaria mundial no debe ser excluido de las negociaciones climáticas, para no generar nuevas formas de proteccionismo. Reconocemos los pilares de un desarrollo sostenible en lo social, en lo económico y en lo ambiental. Agradezco y reconozco el esfuerzo de la comunidad internacional por la histórica emisión de derechos especiales de giro desde el Fondo Monetario Internacional con el propósito de superar los efectos de la pandemia. Sin embargo, necesitamos también de la atención y la sensibilidad de esa misma comunidad para superar el obstáculo que la Argentina tiene en materia de endeudamiento externo con el Fondo Monetario Internacional. Hacerlo de modo exitoso nos permitirá acelerar nuestra transición climática. Estamos renegociando un préstamo que se le concedió a mi país por 57.000 millones de dólares, una suma mayor a la que el Fondo Monetario Internacional destinó para todos los países del mundo para combatir la pandemia, y que significa la mitad del presupuesto que el mundo comprometió para atender el cambio climático y que aún permanece incumplido. Esto demuestra un grado de inconsistencia que debemos corregir. Colegas, necesitamos mayor flexibilidad para honrar esa deuda en plazos y tasas. Estamos dispuestos a vincular parte de su pago a las imprescindibles inversiones en infraestructura verde que Argentina necesita. La Argentina vuelve a crecer en la pospandemia. Este año creceremos un 9%. El futuro de mi país está en el desarrollo de una economía con conocimiento y capacidades tecnológicas, adaptando su matriz productiva con el hidrógeno, entre otras fuentes de energía renovable, y apostando a la electromovilidad. La sustentabilidad ambiental va de la mano de la sustentabilidad social. Es necesario que las deudas a pagar sean sostenibles para garantizar una recuperación económica sólida y con inclusión social. Como suele decir nuestro querido Papa Francisco, construyamos juntos la globalización de la solidaridad, para que no triunfe lo que triunfó hasta aquí, la globalización de la indiferencia. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. My pleasure now to introduce President Moon of South Korea.
존경하는 바이든 대통령님, 폰데어 라이엔 집행위원장님, 정상 여러분, 올 한 해 세계는 탄소 중립을 위해 숨가쁘게 달려왔습니다. 그리고 오늘 우리는 국제 메탄 서약이라는 또 하나의 성과를 빚어냈습니다. 오늘의 자리를 만들어주신 바이든 대통령님과 폰데어 라이엔 집행위원장님의 리더십에 경의를 표합니다. 이제 세계는 2030년까지 메탄 배출량 30% 이상 감축을 목표로 더욱 강하게 연대하고 협력해 나갈 것입니다. 한국 또한 국제 메탄 서약 가입국으로서 국내 메탄 감축을 위한 노력을 책임 있게 실천하겠습니다. 한국은 2030 NDC 상향 목표에 2030년까지 30%의 메탄 감축 방안을 담았습니다. 에너지, 농축, 수산, 폐기물 분야에서 구체적인 감축 계획을 세우는 것은 물론 매립지와 처리시설에서 메탄가스를 회수하여 에너지로 재활용하는 방안도 모색하고 있습니다. 한국은 국내 감축 노력뿐 아니라 이웃 국가들의 메탄 감축에도 함께하겠습니다. 개발도상국들이 메탄 감축에 참여할 수 있도록 정책과 경험, 기술을 공유하고 다양한 지원과 협력을 추진해 나가겠습니다. 오늘 국제 메탄 서약의 출범이 녹색 지구를 만든 연대와 협력의 이정표로 미래 세대에게 기억되길 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My pleasure now to introduce Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh of Vietnam.
Tôi xin cảm ơn ban tổ chức, ngài Tổng thống Hoa Kỳ, bà Chủ tịch EU đã cho tôi cái cơ hội và mời tôi tham dự cái sự kiện quan trọng này. Tôi xin đưa ra hai cái thông điệp. Thứ nhất là tất cả chúng ta đều biết phát thải methane sinh ra từ cái sản xuất, khai thác và xử lý rác thải chưa khoa học, không bền vững, thiếu an toàn. Vì vậy đang làm cho trái đất của chúng ta nóng lên. Tôi xin kêu gọi tất cả chúng ta phải đoàn kết, thống nhất và hành động, tư duy để chúng ta ngăn chặn, đẩy lùi, giảm cái phát thải methane đang đe dọa cuộc sống của chúng ta. Nhưng đây là vấn đề toàn cầu, cho nên phải có cái cách tiếp cận toàn cầu. Và nó ảnh hưởng đến tất cả mọi người dân. Cho nên chúng ta phải có cách tiếp cận toàn dân. Và chúng ta lấy người dân làm trung tâm, làm chủ thể, là mục tiêu và động lực để chúng ta cắt giảm khí thải methane. Thông điệp thứ hai là Việt Nam là một nước đã trải qua nhiều năm chiến tranh. Và chúng tôi hiện nay là một nước đang phát triển. Nhưng mà chúng tôi cam kết rất mạnh mẽ về giảm thải cái khí thải methane này 30% vào năm 2030. Vì vậy, cho nên tôi kêu gọi tất cả các nước giàu, các nước phát triển phải chia sẻ, hỗ trợ và giúp đỡ các nước đang phát triển, các nước nghèo, trong đó có chúng tôi, về các cái vấn đề như sau. Thứ nhất là góp phần hoàn thiện cái thể chế. Cái thứ hai là đào tạo nguồn nhân lực gắn với lại cái đổi mới sáng tạo. Và cái thứ ba là bố trí tài chính xanh phù hợp và hiệu quả. Và cái thứ tư là chia sẻ công nghệ xanh. Và cái thứ năm là quản trị quốc gia. Để góp phần cho các cái nước này tham gia vào cái tiến trình cắt giảm cái methane hiệu quả và góp phần bảo vệ hành tinh của chúng ta xanh, bền vững và an toàn hơn. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. My pleasure to introduce the President of Colombia, President Duque. Just as he takes the podium, let me just say another group will come up as this group departs, and that will be President Zelensky, President Buhari, President Lasso, Prime Minister Aldabiba, President Nguesa, and President Whips.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary, Excellencies. A todos ustedes mi saludo muy especial y quiero aprovechar esta oportunidad para reiterar la importancia de esta cumbre. Colombia llega a esta cumbre, la COP26, con la clara idea de alcanzar la carbono neutralidad en el 2050 y de lograr una reducción del 51% en sus emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero de cara al año 2030. Lograr estos objetivos de la carbono neutralidad también implican que defendamos de manera estratégica la naturaleza y por eso también Colombia se ha comprometido en lograr que el 30% de su territorio sea un territorio declarado como área protegida. No vamos a esperar al 2030, vamos a alcanzar ese propósito en el año 2022. Y hace unos minutos anunciábamos la expansión de las áreas protegidas marinas en Colombia en 16 millones de hectáreas, un compromiso que marca una historia para nosotros. Hoy nos encontramos firmando este compromiso para la reducción de emisiones de gas metano, que es fundamental también en este propósito. Colombia ya ha tomado decisiones como unirse al acuerdo de Minamata para eliminar el mercurio y se ha unido también en la eliminación del asbesto y ha tomado una decisión clara frente a otro tipo de sustancias y gases. Hoy Colombia se une con alegría a este compromiso de reducir en un 30% las emisiones de gas metano de cara al año 2030. Y esto involucra prácticas sostenibles como la agricultura baja en carbono y también como lo ha planteado el doctor Fati y la Agencia Internacional de Energía, que podamos involucrar al sector de hidrocarburos también en una reducción y captura sustancial en la próxima década. Este encuentro nos permite a nosotros también motivar en nuestros países que todas las industrias se centren en un principio: producir conservando y conservar produciendo. Que los principios de reducir, reciclar y reutilizar sean fundamentales y que también el manejo de residuos sólidos en nuestros países traigan consigo una captura y una eliminación o transformación de este gas metano de tal manera que construyamos una sociedad más sostenible. Creemos que este esfuerzo que estamos firmando representa también uno de los grandes logros de esta cumbre. Y por eso mismo, apreciados presidentes, primeros ministros, excelencias, la invitación que hacemos desde Colombia es a que este esfuerzo de este gran acuerdo que ha sido motivado y propiciado por los Estados Unidos y otras naciones, le muestren al mundo que llegar a la carbono neutralidad necesita acciones inmediatas y esta es una de ellas. Muchísimas gracias.
So if I could ask, just to advise everybody so you know how long this will be. The next panel of 6 precedes the last panel. And the last panel I think you'll want to listen to are the UK's Secretary of State for Business Affairs, Kwasi Kwarteng, and then Fatih Birol of the IEA. So if we could ask the other presidents I've already listed to come up. And Gina McCarthy, the United States Climate Advisor.
So you're on the second. You're the second panel here. So you're.
I know. Afterwards, they come up afterwards.
And UK is not coming, and WIPS isn't coming.
Oh, okay. So, President Zelensky, I don't see President Buhari. President Lasso of Ecuador, if he's here. I see him coming up. Prime Minister Al-Dabiba and President Nguesso. If they're not here, we will proceed, because I see some of the members of the other panel. I know that President thank you. Thank you.
We're waiting for you. Libyan is waiting for you.
You'll be good. I know. I'll get there. Okay. You have a seat for 1 sec. Is that all we have of that group? Let me just see. I know that President Whips is not able to make it. So let me, if I may, first I don't see President Zelensky either. So, Prime Minister Al-Dabiba, do you want to lead off? You okay? Ready to go. Let me just say for everybody's information while I'm still here, the exact number of countries that have signed up and are, President Biden and President von der Leyen weren't aware because they've been coming in the last hour, literally, some of them. But we're up to 105 countries that have signed on to the pledge, and I would assume that would grow. So, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kerry. Good afternoon, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to say that Libya can be part of this initiative with the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emission at the fastest and more efficient pace. This initiative should be implemented in the line with the approved mechanism of the United Nations United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Accord. We are in Libya encourage such an initiative and feel that our partner in the oil and gas sector should engage in making it successfully. As you know, much of the indoor required investment and beyond the capability of our capacity as developing country who has sufficient suffered from the instability and economic setback. We need to put our education and healthcare and economy in our priority. Therefore, we should be serious effort from parties that we have financial and technology capability to start initiating the contact and financial institution and make the required preliminary study to set a plan to facilitate the plan, a program. And Libya is back, and Libya is supporting your initiative, and you can count on us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Mr. President Lasso of Ecuador.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gracias, señor secretario de Estado, distinguidos líderes, señoras y señores. Para mí es un tremendo honor estar aquí en representación de Ecuador. Debo comenzar compartiendo con ustedes que ayer hemos hecho un anuncio importante al mundo. Ecuador ha resuelto ampliar la Reserva Marina de Galápagos en 60.000 kilómetros, lo que llegaremos en total a cerca de 198.000 kilómetros de la Reserva Marina de este maravilloso parque natural. Puede que ustedes nos conozcan como un territorio pequeño, pero en ese mismo espacio reside uno de los 17 países megadiversos del planeta. Somos tierra amazónica, pero también andina. Miramos hacia el vasto Pacífico, pero también hacia algunos de los picos más altos y nevados de la región. Y por si esto fuera poco, somos custodios de uno de los tesoros de la humanidad, las Islas Galápagos. Nuestro territorio es pequeño, sí. También es cierto que nuestras emisiones de gases no representan más que una ínfima parte del total mundial, apenas el 0,18%. Pero nuestro compromiso con el planeta, nuestra convicción y voluntad son tan grandes como los de cualquiera aquí presente. El mundo sabe que los ecuatorianos tenemos enormes desafíos internos que resolver. Sin embargo, la amenaza que en este foro abordamos no distingue entre países grandes o chicos, ni ricos ni pobres. Todos los seres humanos en esta tierra somos iguales cuando lo que está en juego es nuestro propio hogar. Si bien creemos que cada país debe decidir su propia forma de desarrollo, si bien creemos que cada pueblo debe encontrar su camino al bienestar, también sabemos que el destino de todas las naciones se entrelaza cada día más, que cada decisión que tomamos o dejamos de tomar en nuestro rincón del planeta genera efectos en otros países del mundo. Pero al mismo tiempo, todos somos poseedores de ideas, conocimientos que deben servir para enfrentar este desafío compartido. Mientras mejor coordinemos nuestras decisiones para afrontar problemas comunes, mayores serán las chances de superarlos. La mejor respuesta no está en repartir quejas o culpas, sino en tomar responsabilidades. La respuesta siempre es hacer nuestra parte por nuestra casa común, nuestro hermoso planeta. Por ello, hoy el Ecuador tiene no solo el honor, sino el deber ético de unirse a este compromiso global por el metano. Nuestro país se compromete ante todo a transformar dicho gas en energía utilizable y así asumir responsabilidad para alcanzar el objetivo de reducir al menos 30% la emisión mundial de metano para el año 2030. Que cada quien asuma su tarea, que cada uno asuma su rol en esta lucha. Sabemos muy bien que así, unida la humanidad entera, saldrá victoriosa de este desafío. Por el bien de las futuras generaciones, que así sea. Que Dios bendiga a la humanidad. Muchas gracias.
Mr. President, thank you very much. The Galapagos obviously is an international treasure, and we're very grateful for your stewardship. Thank you. Mr. President, Sassou Nguesso of the Republic of Congo.
Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Mesdames, Messieurs, l'initiative qui nous réunit aujourd'hui, dont je tiens à remercier les États-Unis d'Amérique et l'Union européenne, est cruciale pour la suite des travaux ici à Glasgow. Cette 26e conférence des partis que nous inaugurons doit en effet être une réunion de progrès concrets et des engagements qui font la différence. Nos peuples attendent des dirigeants mondiaux des décisions à la hauteur des enjeux et de leurs attentes. L'engagement mondial pour le méthane en fait très clairement partie. La réduction substantielle des émissions de méthane, responsable d'un quart de réchauffement climatique actuel, est en effet l'un des moyens les plus efficaces et les plus rapides de limiter l'augmentation de la température moyenne mondiale, objectif plus que jamais essentiel de l'ensemble de la communauté internationale. Je me réjouis de confirmer que la République du Congo contribuera à cet engagement et qu'elle en a déjà intégré les différents paramètres dans la contribution nationale que j'ai présentée hier. Mon pays adaptera les politiques publiques dans les secteurs les plus directement concernés par les émissions de méthane, comme l'énergie et l'agriculture, pour tenir les objectifs qu'il choisit de se donner volontairement dans le cadre de cette initiative. Je souhaite aussi préciser que le secteur des déchets, quant à lui, sera neutre en émissions de gaz à effet de serre dès 2025. Au-delà de la République du Congo, ce sont les 17 pays membres du Fonds bleu pour le bassin du Congo que j'ai l'honneur de présider et toute l'Afrique qui accueille favorablement cet engagement mondial. Car l'Afrique, chacun le sait, est à la fois l'un des plus faibles émetteurs de gaz à effet de serre de la planète, mais aussi l'un des continents les plus vulnérables au changement climatique et les plus menacés. Mais l'Afrique est un continent aussi qui ne se dérobe pas à ses propres responsabilités et quand bien même elle n'est tenue par des accords internationaux a aucune obligation. Elle attend contribuer volontairement et activement aux solutions concrètes, comme nous l'avons proposé par exemple dans le cadre de la lutte contre la déforestation, qui représente elle aussi une partie très substantielle du réchauffement. Mais face à cette volonté africaine, nous ne trouvons trop souvent qu'une demi-volonté des États les plus développés de tenir leurs propres engagements. L'accord de Paris prévoit des mécanismes précis de financement et des montants annuels alloués, en principe, aux pays les plus vulnérables et les plus pauvres. Pourtant, à ce jour, force est de constater que les promesses faites n'ont pas été tenues. Alors, au moment où nous lançons cet engagement mondial pour le méthane, permettez-moi de faire monter du continent africain une demande forte, une demande simple. La lutte mondiale contre le changement climatique ne doit pas être l'ennemi du développement. Et pour parvenir à ce résultat, les engagements pris dans l'accord de Paris doivent être tenus en totalité et pas à la carte. Et les pays soumis aux défis simultanés du réchauffement et du développement doivent avoir accès dans les meilleurs délais au financement prévu, promis, écrit, répété, mais fort peu déboursé. L'Afrique est invitée à engager une transition la plus rapide possible vers une économie décarbonée, ce qui signifie bien souvent pour elle un renoncement à certaines ressources naturelles ou encore le remplacement de sources d'énergie peu coûteuses par de nouvelles sources d'énergie nécessitant des investissements lourds, ou bien encore la capacité de développer une industrie. Les dispositions de l'accord de Paris relatives au financement en faveur des pays en développement doivent donc impérativement être respectées en totalité. Il ne s'agit ni d'un cadeau ni d'un luxe, mais de la condition d'un succès collectif mondial auquel l'Afrique entend prendre toute sa part. Le pacte sur le méthane que nous rejoignons aujourd'hui témoigne de la volonté qui nous anime de contribuer efficacement à la lutte contre le changement climatique. Nous plaiderons pour qu'à terme, tous les pays s'associent à cette initiative. Mais je ne peux conclure sans souhaiter également que la solidarité financière soit au rendez-vous de cette initiative, comme de cette 26e conférence des partis en général. Cette solidarité financière répond à un principe d'équité qu'il convient de ne pas laisser de côté, mais aussi, je tiens à souligner encore, un principe d'efficacité afin d'atteindre ensemble l'objectif de limitation du réchauffement que s'est donné la communauté internationale. Je vous remercie.
Mr. President, thank you very much for the powerful message, and we appreciate it. If I could ask each of these presidents to relinquish their seats now. I want to bring up the last panel, 4 speakers, Fatih Birol, Gina McCarthy, who I will introduce in a moment, Larry Kramer, and Odile Renaud-Bassot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So let me first bring to the microphone Fatih Birol, the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, which has played a tremendous role for all of us, and we're very appreciative for his leadership. Fatih.
Thank you very much, Secretary Kerry, for this kind introduction. Heads of states, ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is a historic moment. And I will explain you in a minute why I call it historic. But before that, may I take this opportunity to thank Presidents Biden and von der Leyen for their leadership, as well as over 100 leaders around the world joining to this pledge. This is huge. Secretary Kerry, you not only a driver of international climate diplomacy, but you want to know numbers. So I ask my colleagues, this is huge, this pledge, but what does it really mean in terms of our fight against climate change? It means the following. If we fulfill this pledge over the next 10 years, the impact is switching off all the cars of the world, all the trucks of the world, all the planes of the world, all the ships of the world to zero emission technologies, entire transportation sector. Therefore, it is historic. Therefore, it is something to be happy and to be congratulating all the governments, all the states signing this. As such, dear colleagues, it is extremely important that the major economies, including those in the G20, should be put this methane abatement pledge in their climate strategies. I saw the map a few minutes ago. It is extremely impressive, more than 100 countries in such a short period of time signing it, but I saw some empty spaces. I very much hope that these empty spaces will be fulfilled, especially with the major economies. Finally, Excellencies, a commitment from my own. As the Prime Minister of Canada, President of Colombia, and Secretary Kerry mentioned, International Energy Agency has been a long-standing champion of methane abatement. And I can commit myself, I can commit my agency that all these 105 countries and others, we are ready to support them with data, with our rich expertise and policy advice. A full and sincere support from International Energy Agency, and once again, congratulations to all those governments. Thank you very much.
That was fantastic. I should have had you speak in the very beginning. I'm sorry. That's a very powerful message, making me wish I had asked Fatih to open up the whole event. Very powerful. Fatih, thank you. The next introduction is very special for me because she comes from my great home state of Massachusetts, but most importantly, she is a pal, a friend, and an extraordinary advocate of her own right, former head of the EPA in the United States, And she has led our charge in the U.S. to coordinate all of our entities to make sure the numbers we're putting forward are really real, the 50 to 52% and so forth. So join me in welcoming Gina McCarthy.
Thank you so much, Secretary Kerry. You are a friend and a gentleman and a wonderful statesman, and I appreciate the honor to be here with all of you today to address this critical issue for climate and for the economy. And I am so excited and thrilled to be with so many leaders today to launch the Global Methane Pledge. In fact, today, the U.S. has committed to be a leader in this global methane challenge with the release of a whole-of-government methane reduction action plan. So you can see the actions that we plan to take and are already taking moving forward. In that plan, the EPA has already released proposed rules addressing oil and gas methane emissions as part of a bold, ambitious plan. And it will not only put us on track to deliver the global methane pledge, but it will create thousands of high-quality methane jobs. It will create thousands of jobs in our industries. It will spur innovation and new technologies that can be deployed globally. And it will address the public health impacts that we all know come along with methane emissions. Our plan is focused on the largest sources of methane emissions, where we can leverage every tool we have available to us to make sure that we accelerate cost-effective emission reductions in everything from our oil and gas sector to landfills to agriculture to our coal mines. This rule will make it easier to move forward together to limit methane emissions from new oil and gas sources. And we are setting the first ever standards for new oil and gas sources in our country. And it is the first standard to also address existing sources. But that's not only the beginning. Our Department of Transportation is upgrading and expanding key pipeline regulations to stop any leaks in millions of miles of gas pipelines in our country. And the Department of the Interior is addressing venting and flaring of methane from oil and gas operations and well closures on public lands and waters. The Department of Agriculture has already initiated and provided new incentives to reward farmers and ranchers for reducing their methane emissions. And EPA is ramping up its initiatives to reduce methane at landfills, building on regulations that they issued earlier this year. And President Biden's Build Back Better plan includes billions of dollars to create high-quality skilled jobs all across the country, employing dislocated workers to actually help reduce methane emissions from abandoned coal mines and plug orphan oil and gas wells, where they have the skills and the ingenuity to get the job done well. And in the U.S., we're just getting started. So we're excited to be here. We look forward to working with all of you to achieve our collective goals while promoting the economic health and resilience of all of our countries. Thank you very much.
I got to tell you, I like it when you take an initiative on and then within an hour, you're hearing about exactly how it's already being initiated. And I really congratulate Gina for the extraordinary steps being taken to implement this now. Let me now introduce, if I may, Larry Kramer. He's the CEO of the Hewlett Foundation.
Thank you, Secretary Kerry. And I want to come back in some ways to where we started. As has been said, precisely because methane is such a potent short-term pollutant, putting methane reduction on a fast track is perhaps the single most effective step we can take at this moment to reduce warming in both the near and the long term. It is in the near term a significant form of adaptation that will slow warming and its effects while also enabling us to reach the Paris target in the long term. The speed with which the pledge came together has been really remarkable, something for which we must thank the extraordinary leadership of Presidents Biden and von der Leyen and, of course, their teams. And now we have to match that speed with similar speed in implementing and fulfilling it. And for that, I'm proud to speak on behalf of more than 20 global philanthropies that likewise came together quickly to compile a fund well in excess of $325 million to assist nations that have taken the pledge. And I hope and believe this will just be the start. This philanthropic aid can be used to provide technical assistance to countries that need it and to develop and deploy both existing and innovative new solutions. This means grant dollars that can be moved quickly and nimbly, now or as soon as you're ready to take it, to perform feasibility studies, to do project development and other efforts that are needed to create the conditions to scale investment in methane reduction now, whether in oil and gas and coal and agriculture or in waste management. We are, in this respect, keen to partner creatively with financial institutions like the regional development banks to help deploy the billions in investment that will be necessary to rapidly reduce methane. And indeed, we hope these efforts will help your countries not just meet the pledge, we hope it will help you do better and achieve even more and greater ambitions. On behalf then of the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, the many other funders that have joined in this effort, the people of the world, and as important, our children, our grandchildren, and their children, thank you for taking this pledge, and we look forward eagerly to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. That's spectacular. And as everybody knows, no government's going to get this done on their own. We need charity, philanthropy, and they are stepping up as enormous partners here. Our final speaker, and then we'll wrap up, appreciate everybody's patience, is Odile Renaud-Bassot.
I will introduce the EBRD. Thank you very much, Secretary Kerry, and I'm very delighted to be here today to sign the Global Methane Pledge on behalf of the EBRD today. And reducing methane emission is at the core of the transition towards a net zero carbon world. Given methane's particularly powerful short-term warming effect, we really need to ensure an early peak and a rapid reduction in its emission by 2030. And with all the other signatories today, we will do our very best to ensure that the pledge we are doing today effectively reduces and eliminates them. The EBRD has a very strong track record of supporting climate finance and the energy transition. We, through our investment in projects, avoided the emission of 120 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. And we also have been at the forefront of efforts to reduce methane emissions through the financing of related projects worth more than 600 million euros per year in sectors such as energy, municipal infrastructure, and agribusiness. Targeting methane abatement sits very well with our market-focused business model because many such investments are commercially viable in their own rights, bringing economic as well as environmental returns. This pledge today is a very important step forward. Because of the large and increasing number of signatories it has already attracted, but also because it sets out a clear goal backed by technical assistance and financial support to help reach it. We, as EBRD, have come to COP26 determined to do even more by mobilizing the private sector, by committing to align to the Paris Agreement by the start of 2023, and by increasing our green financing to more than 50% of our annual business volume by 2025. Today, we are committing to supporting our countries of operation to advance their domestic methane reduction efforts. We will provide technical assistance to support the development of effective inventories, policies, regulations, and standards. And we stand ready to provide funding for methane abatement projects across key sectors of the economy. You can count on our support, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you very, very much. We thank the EBRD, but we thank all of the development banks because we can't do it without a combination of blended finance, concessional finance, and of course the trillions that the private sector is prepared to invest. And there will be very exciting news tomorrow, as I hinted earlier, regarding that. So let me just really put this into a quick perspective and wrap up as we head out of here. First, I thank all of the speakers. I particularly want to thank the Hewlett Foundation, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the European Investment Bank and the Green Climate Fund, all of whom are key parts of this. You know, it's 2:30 in the afternoon on the second day, and I think already we have extraordinary growing energy, accumulation of ambition, as I predicted earlier, I thought was possible. And this particular initiative, I want to thank a group of folks who have just worked on it with passion and incredible energy. And that is on my staff, Rick Duke and Mike Lurie, who are somewhere over here, who've done just a spectacular job. And the EU leads, Mark van Hukkelen and Leonie Theodoridou. We want to thank them, too, who have been just spectacular. So you've all heard, I mean, I thought Fatih's summary, which I wish had been the opening. But you want to think about the progress we made on this pledge. 2 months ago, there were just a few countries on board. And the speed with which this has grown in the last days, I think if more of our country colleagues can actually hear the details from many of you, and if we could make it an effort over the next 10 days to pursue, we could leave here with 2/3 or more of the nations of the world committed to this. I think that's entirely possible. So I hope every single one of you will be an ambassador in this endeavor in order to try to help make that happen. Today, 105 nations have come together. That is a majority of the nations of the world, and it's 70% of global GDP that is now on board. So both developed and developing countries, obviously. And it has this enormous potential to save us from the delay that is obviously built into the scaling back of coal-fired power plants, to the transition to alternative renewable energy of various kinds, all cleaner, I might add, than coal. So this, in my judgment, is the Conference of the Parties, the COP, at its best. This is what we're supposed to do. And the message of this initiative is unmistakable. We're going to act here in Glasgow now and after Glasgow with significant accountability and efforts to follow up on this. And through the development banks and the philanthropies and the private sector, we can get this done. There is no question about it. Certainly not a lack of capacity. The only challenge is willpower. So, my friends, I spent 28 years in the Senate voting thousands of times, literally. And I've seen votes where it's really narrow and it's hard and you're not sure the balance between what you believe and the help you're giving to people or many other considerations that legislators have to face. This is not a hard choice. This is benefits that so outweigh the negatives we're looking at in terms of money and damage and lives lost. Compare that to the benefits of a cleaner planet, a safer planet, a healthier planet, and one whose economies are clicking because we are moving to the clean economy of the future. So thank you all very, very much for being part of this, for your patience today. Let's continue to make these next 10 days as fruitful as the first day and a half have been. Thank you.